Good afternoon, dear guests. On behalf of the Pallas Athény Publishing House, I would like to thank you for joining the book launch of the Hungarian version of Plan B. We are really honored that Shannah Kennedy, the author of the book, accepted our invitation for today. The book Plan B was published by Penguin Life in July this year, and now you can also read the Hungarian version. It is available on our website and at the bookstores. Shannah Kennedy is one of Australia's foremost strategic life coaches and author of several best-selling titles. To this webinar, we also invited Ádám Banai, PhD, Executive Director at Magyar Nemzeti Bank, Executive Directorate, Monetary Policy Instruments and Foreign Reserve Management, former athlete and author of several books and papers. Now, Shannah Kennedy and Ádám Banai is here with us live, and I would like to give the floor to them.
Thank you so much for having me here. Hello, Adam.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to have you here, especially since it is 4 a.m. in the morning in Melbourne time, so it was hard for you to get up this early, but for us it's a great honor, and I feel very lucky to be with you this time. For those who watch this webinar, you can it's technical note that you can send us questions via Facebook or YouTube, so feel free to ask. At the end we will have a few minutes to ask questions from Shannah. This is also a special occasion since, as I learned from Shannah, she has some Hungarian roots indirectly via her husband. So it is also specially from this perspective as well. And I think why this book is very actual is what we learned during the pandemic, that it is a must to have a plan B, and this book is about how to plan our future, how to plan our future and change our life if it is needed. And during the pandemic, many people who lost their job or should turn their life, I think for them it is very useful to read about it, how to be prepared. And I think not just because of the pandemic, but because of our changing environment, it is also important. If we think about the digitalization, which changed all the labor market, or we think of climate change, which has also a very direct effect on labor market, we can imagine how important to be prepared. Just one example of what I have read last week, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, according to its forecast, in 2030, about 70% more wind turbine technicians will be needed. So we can see just from this very small example that how big changes are ahead of us, and for this reason to be prepared it is important. And actually I got this book about 6-8 weeks ago, and I thought that it's just 300 pages, so it will be easy to get through it. But what I learned is it is not a regular book, but more like a workbook. It is a true support to go through this long journey of changing our career or our life, or just change a little bit the direction of the path we go. There are many shorter and longer texts to do, many suggestions for the everyday life. So it is not an easy book, but it's quite helpful. And its first question, what I would ask is, who do you recommend this book, and what is your kind of summary of this book? Although I know that it is just hard to give some key takeaways because it's much more than that.
Thank you very much. Look, I wrote the book because I've been a life coach for 20 years here in Australia, and 20 years of coaching people through change, whether that be, you have a health crisis, you lose your job, you have a relationship breakdown. Anytime that we experience change, I think people get very stuck and they don't know what to do next. So this is actually a guidebook. If we think about it as a little roadmap that takes you through the process of change whenever you feel like you've been hit with something. So I think what I wanted to do was to give people, number one, why you feel the way you feel, and number two is really what are the support tools that you could do for yourself and the exercises that you can do to make that transition through change as easy as possible, and so that you understand what stage you're in. There's really 4 stages of change that we go through as a human being. Anytime, we change a job, or we move house, or we have a new relationship, or, we actually climb the corporate ladder, for example. We're still going through change. It's not necessarily change for the worst. It can be change for the better too, as we're growing and evolving and we feel uncomfortable. I think we experience change in that way too. So the book really is for every human being, because we all experience change on a regular basis. It's one of those books that you want to have in the house. You'd love to have next to your bed, just to dip in and dip out of. You don't need to necessarily, as you said, read the 300 pages in a row, but just to go into the front of the book and see where you're at with how you're feeling, and then go and read about that and understand it. So for me, it was, I wish I'd had this book for the last 20 years of coaching people through change, and I could have just given it to them and said, you know what? This is the grief cycle, and you don't need to read a whole book on grief, but I'm going to give it to you in 3 pages. Or if you're having trouble sleeping, you don't need to read a whole book on sleep. Just read these 3 pages, and it will tell you why sleep is important, and really what the principles of sleep are, and how to really have a great habit of sleep. It will talk to you about goal setting, which is not about reading a whole book on goals, but let's just set goals in 5 pages and let me show you how in the best possible way. So it really is like a fast cookbook, isn't it? It's like 3 ingredients. It's really about how to do things in the simplest of ways so that we don't have to go into it too deeply, but we'll get the best result.
What I was wondering when I was reading this book is when, it seems for me today that most people who go to coach and your experience suggests also that mostly they are executives or successful sportsmen or that type of people. And what I was wondering is how this all is applicable for those everyday people who probably suffered the most during this pandemic, because for example, for some executives, it seems that okay, if they lose their job or have to change for example, for health reasons or something, they will have so much time to consider what to do. They can really stop, go through the options. But for everyday people, probably it is like they just have to find something abruptly because they have to pay their checks, etc. So yeah. How do you see the applicability for those people's this type of coaching suggestions?
Yeah, this book is not just for high performance. I actually wrote it for every human being. So whether you're 16 years old and you went through a relationship, the boyfriend didn't like you anymore, or whether you don't have the ability to afford a coach for yourself, is how do we bring all of the the best practices and teach them in the simplest of possible ways for everybody. And this book is like a big hug for a lot of people. And it's been out in Australia since June this year. And so many people have written to me and said, it's changed my life. It's like you're talking to me in the book. It's like a big hug. It's helping me. I'm living in the pages. I'm experiencing all the feelings and emotions in the pages. The quotes are really helping me move forward and things to train my brain with and hold on to. So it is for everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're the local barista making coffee or a factory worker or a school teacher or a student or a CEO or an elite athlete. The whole book is about human beings and how we experience change and how to navigate and embrace change by understanding the process in the simplest of possible ways, and how to take you through that initial change moment when you feel like the world stopped for a minute, and how to heal yourself a little bit, and then how to set a new plan for yourself and a new direction for your mind, and then how to actually celebrate yourself, which I think a lot of people don't know how to do, is celebrate that we're here today and that we're showing up, or that you lost your job and then you got a different job, and doesn't matter what it is, but we need to be able to celebrate ourselves. And maybe plan B was better than plan A. Maybe things happen for us, not to us. And I think when people can read about that, read about celebrating and embracing joy and gratitude and mindfulness and these wonderful topics that warm our hearts and give us some fulfillment in life, that's what gives our life a lot more richness.
You mentioned mindfulness, and this was one of the key lessons I took from this book for myself. I think I'm really bad at it. And as I see my generation, I think it is a big problem that we are far from mindfulness, since we don't focus on small things. We don't take time. We don't slow down. And what I see the reason behind is that most of us fear from miss out of anything, although probably if we look back, they were not that important thing. So what is your suggestion how to balance between to feel like we are in everything and we take the chances to go forward, to be happy, but on the other side we should be able to focus on those small things, what you mentioned in the book?
Yeah. Well, in the book, we talk about, human beings, we need a vision. We need a plan. We need to know where we're going. Like, where are we driving the car? We need to know what we want, what's important to us, what we value the most. And once we have that sort of clarity about what's important to us, whether it be health or family or achievement or your career, then we can really do some nice planning. And once we've done some great planning, we need to turn to mindfulness. We actually need to enjoy the journey. And it doesn't mean we miss out. What it means is we really experience something. And when we're on that treadmill of life and we're rushing here and we're rushing there and we're trying to do everything, but we're not really present, and we're not really enjoying our food, we're not tasting our coffee, we're not enjoying the wine, we're not present with our children, or really just showing up to be here 100% right now where we are, we miss out on a lot. We actually miss out on a lot more than what you think. So mindfulness is just about slowing down, living a life of gratitude, where every day we're really grateful for Zoom at the moment, aren't we? Because we get to do this. We get to do this book launch and podcast and do these amazing things because of technology. So I'm really grateful that I get to get up at 3:30 in the morning here in Melbourne and show up, and we have the ability to do that. So that gratitude practice, that mindfulness of, really enjoying, what we're seeing, where we're at. We have beautiful homes, we have warm beds, we have food to eat, we have a lot more than a lot of other people. And once we have a life of gratitude, we start finding out that we have a whole lot more to be grateful for. And that really helps us with that joy and that positivity in life. So mindfulness is really at the base, and at the base of mindfulness is learning how to breathe. It's learning how to slow everything down a little bit so we can take it into the computer program here in our mind and enjoy things. So most people I found over the last 2 years during the pandemic have forgotten how to breathe. It's like there's a fear mentality that's gripped us, and we've forgotten just to take a breath and just control our nervous system a little bit and still find a bit of joy, and just stop talking about it so much and stop being in fear about it so much, and maybe just enjoying where we're at today.
What you mentioned that sometimes in this book is just you just have to jump in it and just read 3 or 4 pages, and I think what I really like is these very small suggestions that you mentioned. Just breathe deeply and feel these small things, and there are several others. I would say low-hanging fruits like how to go to sleep or take 3 breaths before being committed to anything, or challenging our comfort zone, which I'm actually doing now with you. So what do you think? What are the most important, just very brief suggestions from the book for everyday people to be more happy, more successful?
Well, I love that. I wanted to give people lots of small things that they could pick, so it's like you've got a tapas menu of things to pick for yourself, for those low-hanging fruits of what do you need in your life right now, and next year when you go through the book you might take something different. So there's so many small solutions in the book that it will be relevant for the rest of your life, because you will change and you will grow and you will evolve, and you will always find solutions in the book. So for me, I love the sleep. I love the basic rule that we have of 3 hours before bed, no food, 2 hours before bed, turn the computer off and stop working, and 1 hour before bed is really to turn the phone off. We are so bound by this technology that the brain needs an hour to just watch a movie or stop that scrolling, that high addictive personality style of interaction with the phone. So all of those small things, taking a breath is probably one of the most important things that we teach. It's like high performance, as you know, with athletes. We watched the Olympics, didn't we, earlier this year? And we saw with the Olympics, we see athletes really breathing. They're breathing to calm themselves down. They're breathing to fire themselves up. They're breathing to take it all in. So when we learn how to breathe properly, it's the direct communication from the brain to your nervous system. If you're nervous, getting out of your comfort zone, the first thing that we need to do is learn how to breathe. And last year, for thousands of people, I was doing Zooms with 600 people at a time. And one of the most important things that they said to me they took away was learning how to breathe. And this is something that's free. It's something we do all day, but we don't do consciously. And I was teaching them that, we know the importance with COVID, with washing your hands regularly. It's one of the rules for COVID here in this country is to wash your hands 6 times a day type of thing. And every time that you wash your hands, you could actually take 3 deep, grounding, calm, confident breaths. And then you could come back to your computer and be really powerful. You could be present, you could be sharp in the mind, you could make great decisions. Or, if you took 3 breaths before you walked in the front door at home when you've been to work and you come home to your family, you could take 3 deep breaths and open the door for the most important meeting of the day, which is with your family and friends. So I think teaching these really small, low-hanging fruits, as you say, are probably the biggest life-changing things that we can do.
You mentioned some athletes. As I learned, you formerly worked as a manager or something like in sport life, and then you started to work with athletes. So as a former athlete, I'm curious about how it is work with athletes, and what is the difference with, because what I have seen, especially with my former teammates, that for those athletes who are on the mid-level, so they are successful enough to earn some money to live in sport life, but not successful like David Beckham or somebody at the top. And I was curious, for you, which is the harder in athlete types, to work with those in the mid-level who want to change their life, or work with the most successful one? We have seen many examples who could not go forward. Just as an example, Allen Iverson, who lost kind of everything after MBA. So how do you see the difference?
Yeah, well, 20 years ago, I'm showing my age here, I'm 50. So 20 years ago, when I was in corporate sports, so in the sponsorship market, and my job was a bit like Jerry Maguire, and I had 200 athletes that I needed to look after and buy and sell and do their contracts. So I had first experience of working with an enormous amount of athletes over different sports. And I saw the same thing happening, which was, who are you without your job? I'll say it again, who are you without your job? And it was really confronting for them. So what I noticed was when they got injured, or when their career finished, they actually went into a Great Depression because nothing could compare to their sport career. And so they actually didn't know who they were without their job, and they hadn't developed themselves as a human being. So the first book I wrote was called The Life Plan, and it was all about, we need a career plan, but we need a life plan that's actually running next to your career plan. That's developing your life, developing your skills outside of sport. So I studied life coaching 20 years ago. I think I was the first person in Melbourne to study it. And I started my business coaching athletes into retirement. It was about building them through that transition and that change process, actually. And then it was quite interesting that the corporate world said, oh no, we need that too, because if you've had a career in banking for 20 years, then who are you without banking? It becomes a part of you, doesn't it? Or, you know, if you've been working in a factory for 20 years, you're a part of it. That's in your blood. It's what you know, it's what you love. And when you take that away, you know, you become quite sad, quite down. So my job was really to coach people on, we have a new purpose, and our new purpose and our new why in life is to show up every day being the best version of yourself and working for your own set of values. They're the new boss, is your own set of values, which 90% of people don't know their own set of values. And in the book Plan B, it really directs you to say, make sure you're very clear about what your own code of conduct is. You know, for me personally, it's my health. And health is mental health, physical health, and emotional health. And the second thing is family happiness, is how am I showing up for my family? And the third value is achievement, because if I'm not achieving every day, I'm not a very happy person. So the achievement might be actually breathing and washing my hands, because if I'm breathing, I'm not going to burn out. Because I'm working very hard, I've been working in this job for 20 years, I'm not burning out because I'm doing the breath work. It's called conscious refueling. And for the generation coming through who love to rush everywhere, They don't want to miss out on anything. They want to keep pushing. It's fantastic, except that you burn out. So we want to really prevent the burnout. And I work with a lot of people and athletes on, how do you have a sustainable career, but also build a life outside of your career. So I do love working with athletes on building life after sport so that they have something to look forward to and they have a new journey and a new dream to go and chase.
I think what is always hard, especially with athletes, but I think it's kind of similar for executives as well. How to find a point you need to start to work, because what I see, and probably you mentioned earlier, that to take the success can be also hard, and for sure in some cases, if you are in your most successful period, you just don't recognize that you should change some part of your life, and probably when the people turn to you, it is always kind of late or not the best period. So if they go to you earlier, it will be much easier to do the necessary changing. So how anybody can recognize that part of the life when they should start to work on themselves?
Yeah, it's really interesting that maybe 20 years ago, people came to me when they were in a crisis or they were at a crossroad in their life. But over the years, because coaching has become so popular, that a lot of people, younger people, are starting to work with coaches to say, let's create a plan moving forward so that I don't burn out, so that I don't get to that point of crossroads, or once I hit where I think is successful, where to from there? So I do 20-year plans with people where we actually think about, okay, once you get to point A and then point B and then point C, what does it look like and feel like? And I always say life is a marathon and we need to stop at the Gatorade stations and refuel. And if every 5 years you worked with a coach for 6 months to really ask yourself the hard questions and to make sure you're living on purpose and in alignment with your values, you would have a really great marathon, a really great journey, rather than waiting till there's a crisis or waiting till you're burnt out. So prevention is great. And I work with a coach every couple of years. Probably every 5 years, I get myself a coach for the year. Last year, when the pandemic first hit, I'm a very successful person. I've got a very big business. I have a speaking business. I'm very fit. I have 2 teenage children. I have a wonderful husband. I've written 7 books that are global, and I still work with a coach just to keep saying, well, what does the whole picture look like? And are we making sure that every area of your life you are taking responsibility for, so that we're not really successful at work, but terrible in our private life, or, we're making lots of money, but we've got no idea on our financial situation. So when you work with a coach, we actually look at all the areas of your life and make sure that, there's a plan for it and that you understand it and that you can take responsibility for it so that every part of your life is great.
So we're close to the end of our talk, and if anybody has a question for you, it is time now to write it on Facebook or YouTube. I was also wondering how I keep at sport because it is kind of my favorite field, and you were also writing about coaches in sports and how to work with them, because I think it is also a very tough job, in the sense that, especially for those who are not working with teams but with just some individuals, it is very hard to drive their career and change those periods when some of their biggest athletes stop doing sports. So how do you see those kind of life situation?
Well, when you look at somebody like a Roger Federer, for example, you know, the tennis player, and you look how he's still very calm, he's very grounded, he has a lovely family that he puts as a priority. He always says it's just tennis, but he does his best. So he's really developed his life outside of sport as well. But, you know, we're all athletes. I think every single one of us is an athlete of life. And when we really can see ourselves as an athlete and we can adopt some of those principles of athletes of showing up and being your best every day, wanting to learn every day, wanting to understand, you know, how to manage yourself through change, which this book is all about. We're all athletes of life, and the more that we can learn, the happier we are. The more that we can take responsibility for our life, the happier we are. And the more that we can breathe and find mindfulness and gratitude and celebration, the happier we are. So I think that we should all see ourselves as an elite athlete. We're all unique, we're all special, and we all deserve the best. And we all have access to this great information now because of technology. We have internet. We have books being translated, which is incredible. We have webinars. We have these Zoom interviews. We have the world of podcasts. So we can learn so much now that I'm so grateful for, to really keep polishing ourselves up as an athlete, like we have a coach. And I think in sport, we can learn a lot from sport, and we can take some of those guiding principles and apply them into our own life.
Yeah, that's true. We have many opportunities to learn from, and one is this book, which has a Hungarian translation now. So I think many people in Hungary can also learn from it. And we have some question from the audience. So the first is, what are the key aspects of setting up a winning plan? Although the whole book is about it, so what are the key for you from your perspective? Yeah. I think the real answer is in the book. So who sent this question should read this book at first.
Yeah, and I think the key aspects of a winning plan is you have to have a vision. Number one, you have to know where you want to get to and what that looks like. And number two, you have to have a plan on how you're going to get there. If you don't have a vision of where you want to be and how you want to feel and where you want to be financially and where you want to be with your friends and where you want to be with your health and your fitness, etc., you can't have a plan. So you have to have the vision first, and then you have the plan. And then you set the goals, and then you just commit and you take massive action.
The second question was that what personality traits and skills are essentials to develop the alternatives or the plan B? I'm sure that you will say that everybody is able to develop these skills. For some it is easier, for others are harder, but what are the most important one?
Well, yes, the book is a book of life skills that we want to master for life. So thinking of yourself like the athlete, it's this self-mastery type of book. So we're going into all of the small skills that you could handpick and try and master for life. So, you know, understanding grief and understanding feelings so that you know that they keep passing through you. There's how to restore yourself and recover whenever you're feeling tired and burnt out. All of the solutions are there. Whenever you feel lost and you don't have a plan, all the solutions are there on how to build a plan, how to write your vision, how to do a vision board. It's all in there. So it just gives you the solution, the dot points of all of the things to do, whether you're feeling burnt out, whether you need a new plan, whether you're coming out the other side, or whether you're in the very beginning, which is, oh, I've just fell off my bike. Something hit me in life, you know, it's something I don't like, or I'm going out of my comfort zone. I actually need to know what the change is, and I need to choose my story, which I think is really important too.
Thanks. And we have a last question. How can we recognize the root of uncomfortable situations? I think it is always hard for anybody to understand their feelings, their behavior. So I think it is very important to change our life to first understand the roots of these problems, and what are your suggestions for it?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question, because, you know, before we go and plan and do our vision and move forward, we actually need to start with where we're at. And we have to understand who we are and how we feel about things, and what our feelings and emotions are, and how we're wired. And the whole first chapter of the book has the feelings wheel. It has the emotions that we experience. And when you can understand them and just go around the wheel and say, that's me, and that's me, and that's me, you actually need to start with where you're at. You know, if you're not an elite runner, you're not an elite runner. So don't go into running if running is something that you don't like. So I think it's really important that, yeah, when we experience change, it's uncomfortable, and we need to understand our feelings. We need to own them, and then we need to manage them. So, you know, I don't like going to big parties, for example. I'm a bit of an introvert, so lockdown is really good for me. I love being at home with my family, and going out to big parties is not really for me, but I have to practice. I have to get socially fit again now that we've been in lockdown for 2 years and we've just come out. You know, a lot of people have anxiety here because they're socially unfit. We don't know how to go out and enjoy ourselves anymore, because we've basically been the most locked down city in the world. So we've got to get fit again in that sense.
Thank you very much. I think that was our last question. I'm very glad we had the opportunity to talk to you. I think it was a great experience for myself to read this book, although I had not enough time for it, so I have to restart and go into it deeply. And I suggest this for everybody who will buy this book and read this book. I think it can be a very nice support for a great journey on changing our life, actually. And I want to thank you again to be with us this early in the morning, and have a nice day for you, or go back to sleep. Thanks a lot.
I think I might go back to sleep for a while, but firstly, thank you so much for translating the book. I feel very grateful for that. I'm extremely excited about sharing these tools and these tips that will really help and support people at any stage in their life, whether you're 18 years old or 60 years old. You don't have to read it from cover to cover. It really is, I'm just going to dip in and dip out and just learn something for myself and support myself with it as a little book for the rest of your life. So thank you for having me. It was just wonderful speaking to you, Adam, and I look forward to lots more talks together.
Thank you very much.